That thing's so cool. Oh, good morning. Welcome to High Point Music's Gear Reviews. I'm Lewis, and in today's episode I'm going to show you another RonSound product, the 75 Hairpie Classic. The Hairpie Classic is based on the version 2 Big Muff, which to most would be known as the ram head era. It's a pretty iconic fuzz sound. It has that classic mid scoop, and it's the model where they started to add a little bit more gain and a little bit more frequency response in the treble and bass areas so that you get that really luscious sound. This sound, or this Big Muff fuzz sound, is the sound that got me into using them. Bands like the Smashing Pumpkins, Bush, Dinosaur Jr., those kind of sounds really inspired me because of how much they changed the sound of the guitar. So I thought, seeing as we'd shown the triangle on the channel previously, and I just happened to have bought another model recently, this would be a pretty cool thing to show in comparison to the triangle. If you're interested, I have done a shootout between this Hairpie and the triangle Hairpie as well, and you can check that out in the channel below. So let's get into it. I'm going to show you my clean tone. My bridge pickup, my neck pickup. Of course, it's the same trusty Fender Strat that I play in most of our gear review demos. For consistency, I'm going straight from my guitar into the RonSound Hairpie, out of the Hairpie into the Two Notes Look Clean, and off to our Ableton recording session. I am using the built-in cabinet simulation on the Two Notes Look Clean, which I always do, so that it's a fairly inexpensive way for people at home to get this kind of sound just by using the Two Notes Look Clean. We have got a review on there, and if you're interested in checking the Look Clean out for yourself, you can have a look at the links below. So let's get into it. We've got 3 controls here on the top of the Hairpie. We've got our sustain, which is our gain control, our tone, which sweeps between a treble or a bass cut frequency, like most overdrives and distortions, and a volume control. This particular pedal is a little bit different because it's got a mids range selector. This is a custom option on this pedal, but what it does is allows us to go from a scooped mids sound to a flat mids sound, and then a little mids bump. So I thought it would be good to explore how useful that range is and where you can really hear the differences. So let's start off with some basic sounds. I did have this set up as you see it here in the intro. I've got my gain set at 3 o'clock here, the tone at 3 o'clock, and the volume just at unity, so it's a balanced volume. I'll give you some bridge pickup. Like so. Let's just jump up and switch between that stock flat mids and mids hump straight up and see what those differences do. The flat. Back to the scooped. Cool. So straight away you can hear there's a pretty big difference between the scooped mids and either the flat or the boosted mids. At the current gain and tone settings, I find that the bigger difference is between the stock and the flat mids. Going to the mids hump in this particular setting doesn't quite make as big a difference as the other two. So I'll have a look at that when we get to the end of the gain spectrum, but let's dial this back down to minimum gain and show what we can do with it in that kind of setting. So I need a little bit more volume and a little bit more tone. So at this minimum gain setting, this is what we end up with. So it's not quite overdrive territory. But it's also not very aggressive. So if you're maybe backing your guitar volume off a little bit more as well, let's just try that and roll that forward. It's about halfway on my volume pot. And as far as fuzz sounds go, it's somewhat clean. Being able to roll your volume back like that and have enough level in the pedal is a really useful feature. It's a good way to get the most out of one particular pedal, because you can go from a dynamic range of between there and there, at least at your minimum gain settings. If you're not playing a lot of heavy stuff, this is a really useful feature, but most people are probably going to want to have that gain a bit higher to get a bit more of a difference between their clean and their dirty sounds. So let's just dial that up. I'm basically just going to push this up to the point where the gain kind of jumps up in level. So we go from our low here. Hear it kind of jump up there. So you can hear that with a little bit more gain there, you do get a lot more room to move on your volume knob, so that's a pretty cool thing to be aware of. Let's push up our gain control now into some higher range. We'll go from here to about 11 o'clock, where that gain starts to really push through a bit more. So you can hear, even at our less than 50% gain, the end of the notes, the way they sustain and the way those notes then decay as they fade, you get that almost feedback-like sound to the end of your lead lines. Which is great for lead work, particularly in your neck pickup, where you get that really smooth, what I call Gary Moore, or some people would know as the Santana, like violin-like lead tone. It's a really, really lovely way to make what can be an aggressive sounding fuzz pedal sound really smooth and bluesy and creamy kind of sounding. A feature I particularly like in this pedal. Let's jump from here just to our flat mids for some comparison. Up to the mid hump. Cool. So far we're definitely getting more of a difference between the stock and the flat mids. Going from the flat mids up to the mid hump is not as big of a difference as you might expect for this particular gain setting. So I'm going to push that up now to about the 2 o'clock position. And back our volume off. Like so. And you get a pretty good variation between the lower signal and the higher signal. I've talked a little bit about this regarding stacking of effects, and it's a really good way to get multiple dynamic levels out of one pedal or two pedals. Just by lowering the volume of your guitar signal getting that little bit smaller doesn't clip as much, and so that's why you get less overdrive. You are going to lose a little bit of volume, but with a little bit less clipping going on, you can strum a bit harder to try and compensate for that change in volume. And if you are going for that quieter sound, it's more than likely that the particular part in the piece of music you're playing may have a lower dynamic anyway, and that little bit of loss of volume isn't going to be a big deal. So learning to use your volume control, your pickup selector and your tone controls with any big muff, in particular something that has these options with mids so you can change your frequency response, is a really good way to get the most out of it. I'm just going to have a play with the gain control on the other mids options. And it's pretty easy to hear that that difference is still mostly between the stock and the flat mids range. The lead tone at this volume. It's getting kind of blistering, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to knock my tone control back here on the guitar. Don't notice as much of a difference as you do on the bridge. Pretty subtle there, but again, if you're using lower volume controls and different guitars, it's a really good way to get that alternative texture out of the set of pickups you've got and the guitar pedal you're using. Let's push up our gain control now. Make sure I've set my controls back. Going to go up to our maximum here. Normally here I would back our tone control off, but before I do that, I'm just going to have a look at our mids selection. So cool. So a little bit of lead work just at that high gain with the tone up. Let it sustain out. And then some neck pickup. So you definitely get that extra sustain, hence why they call it the sustain control. I love the lead tones of a Big Muff. I think the neck pickup and a Big Muff pedal are some of the best lead guitar sounds you can possibly get, and they work for rock, prog, some blues, a lot of pop, a lot of alternative stuff, and the amount of sounds you can get by running alternative instruments through a pedal like this, a drum machine, a synthesizer, your vocals, all of that kind of thing can help to add texture and layer when you're creating or producing a song that maybe you've written or that you're just performing live. So learning to use your instrument and your gain control in conjunction to each other is going to be a really good way to get the most out of what is otherwise a fairly simple pedal. The next thing I wanted to quickly show you is just the range of the tone control. Because the tone control at its most clockwise position is filtering a little bit of bass out and letting all the treble through, we're going to filter the treble out and allow more bass to come in. So you can go from what is a fairly bright rock kind of sound to a fairly doom and sludgy kind of sound. So let's have a quick look at that. I'm just going to go back to my bridge pickup. Because it's the brightest, it'll give us the most change of frequency. Cool, so you can hear that once you roll that tone control back, it does get pretty doomy, but with the addition of our mids control, we can change that frequency response a little bit. So at our minimum tone position, so that is where we hear the big difference in that mids bump. The tone control all the way down, sometimes it can sound muddy, which is definitely a sound people use, but I would always have it higher. However, the mids bump there gives us the ability to go from our classic Big Muff sound, classic with the tone control down, So that is the RonSound Hairpie Classic. It's the Hairpie Classic 75 specifically with the mids boost option. If you're interested in checking one of these out, you can follow the link below. You don't have to get that mids boost option. It's a custom option that I mentioned earlier, but I think it's definitely worth doing for the small price of the additional cost. Don't forget to give our channel a like, a share, and subscribe if you've enjoyed it. We really appreciate that feedback. If there are other things you'd like to see on the channel or something specific about this pedal you'd like to know more of, leave a comment below. I'd really love to get in touch with you. As always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.